Today for your viewing pleasure, we got an assortment of the best consumer grade CRTs out there. Now I don't have every single best consumer grade CRT. I don't have an FV310, I don't have a Panasonic Tau, and I don't have an RCA Pro Scan. Now the FV310, I have a very similar monitor to that one that's probably going to get, this one right here is going to be very similar to a 310. Now a Panasonic Tau, I don't have one of those. However, I do have another Panasonic you'll see in this video that's going to have quality very similar to a Tau. And that RCA Pro Scan, I don't got one of those, man. I don't think I'm going to find one at this point. CRTs are drying up. And that is a multi-format, a consumer grade CRT. It'll do like 720p and 240p natively. So I don't got those. And then another point I want to bring up before I get into like everything here is when we're talking about the best CRTs out there, you can't really say, it's impossible today to say, oh, this one's the best, for a couple of reasons. One is there's different tastes. Some people like shadow mask, some like aperture grill. And if you like one of those, no one's gonna convince you otherwise. Another thing is these TVs are really old and they're worn out at this point. So you might think your TV is excellent. For example, like this is a freakishly sharp FV over here. And it might just be that it didn't get any hours. It might just be low hours. So you might think this model number is the greatest and really it just has low hours. Another thing is some of these just came off the assembly line better than other ones. For example, I was talking to Save on Pat. He was a technician. He used to fix BVMs and PVMs for Sony. And he told me what they did, what Sony would do is off the assembly line, you got all these tubes coming off the assembly line with the exact same serial number, model number on the tube. And they would look at it, and if the tube looked excellent, it would go in their BVMs. And they'd call it 900 line. And if the tube wasn't as good, they might put it in a 700 line PVM. Exact same tube. It's just some of them just come off the assembly line better. And I think something like that's going on with these CRTs. You just get lucky sometimes, and sometimes you get unlucky. So yeah, with those little disclaimers out of the way, when I say these are the best CRTs, what I mean is they all got component inputs. They all take RGB. They're not all flat screens. I got some curved glass and some flat screens in here, but they're all standard definition. There's no HD upscaling nonsense in this video. And they're all high TV line counts for consumer grades. So yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so I'm gonna break this video up into 3 parts. I'm gonna start this video here with my Sharpies. These are my 3 sharpest CRTs that all have a very similar look. And I'm also going to show my XBR48, which is kind of in its own group. We'll do that one separately. And then I'm going to bring 3 more CRTs out, my shadow mask tubes that all have a very similar look. So getting started here, what we got lined up is this is a 27-inch FS12 Sony Vega flat screen. Another flat screen, Sony XBR 200. A lot of people think XBRs are all HD. They're not. There's a 200 and a 250. This is the 236-inch model that is standard definition. And on the left here, this is an oddball. This is the Toshiba 32-inch AF43 model. It's a flat screen, shadow mask too, but it doesn't look like a shadow mask. It looks like these aperture grills. That's why it's in here with these TVs. So yeah, let's start here with this 27-inch Vega 12. This is a freak. I have a lot of flat screen Vegas, and I've taken a bunch to the dump. I've gone through a lot of Vegas, and this is the sharpest one I've ever seen. It's freakishly sharp. It's similar to a PVM. I'm gonna do some footage. I might just roll that right now. I'm gonna do footage comparing these TVs to my 20-inch PVM 20M2 MDU, because like this guy here to me is damn near that 600. So we'll look at that and see how that turns out. But yeah, that's this thing's claim to fame. It's the sharpest Trinitron I've ever had. It's not Trinitron, sharpest Vega I've ever seen. I don't know if it came off the assembly line that way, or if it I just got lucky, like, and it had low hours, or if there's something inherent to this model. I haven't had another 12 to judge. Maybe all 12s are this sharp. Be interesting to hear anyone else out there that's got a 12. Let me know what they think about it. You know, I don't like the design of this. I think it's ugly. It's got these speakers on the bottom there, and they kind of flare out. See how the foot like flares out? I think that's ugly. And it's just kind of angled. Like they were trying to not make it look boxy. Like there's this angle going on here. The side is angled. It's just, the build quality on it is ugly to me. But I mean, the number one thing is how those scan lines look. And this is, out of the three here, this is probably the sharpest. So next we're gonna look at this XBR 200. And this is my main TV. And if it's got anything like excellent about it, it's the build quality. It's gray and it's boxy. That's what I like about it. It's not silver. It's flat on the top. You can see there where my son took a bite out of it. He got mad because I was making him move it, and he went, oh, and clamped onto that with his teeth. But it gives it character. So this TV, let's say, okay, it doesn't have very good black levels, so the colors don't pop on it. It's probably got the worst black levels out of any of my TVs. And the white balance is just good. It's not great, but it's good. Its sharpness it's the least sharp probably out of the three here. It does movies very well, and it doesn't have a very strong interlaced image when I'm using CRT IMU driver. So for now, let's see. I can show you guys. Oh, where'd my remote go? So I'm using this as my main TV in my room. Like I sit back in my bed over there, and I'll put like some pillows up and watch some TV over here across the room. And usually with CRT IMU driver, when you're hooked up to your computer, you get this kind of jittering effect here, and this TV doesn't have that, or very mildly has it. So that's a big plus. And just movies, man. Movies look great on this thing. What do we got here? Yeah, so yeah, the movies, if I watch movies with this guy, it's actually so sharp that you can see scan lines in 480i. And this, you can see the scan lines too in 480i, but not across the room. It's just something about this TV's, how it's not quite as sharp as the other two. It's a little bit softer, it just makes the movies look excellent. So that's that thing's claim to fame. Moving on over here, hold on a second, guys. Just gonna readjust my camera. We got my Toshiba 32AF43. Now I've seen other videos where guys thought their Toshibas didn't look that great. Well, this one does. Maybe there's certain models that look better than others. I know that this one does have a Toshiba tube in it, and some of them don't have Toshiba tubes. I believe the 32 and 36-inch models have Toshibas, and the other ones have Orions in them, which my understanding aren't the best tubes. As far as build quality on this, it's whatever. I like that it's blocky. It doesn't try to round itself out like that Vega over there. And it has a cool tally light down here. I like that. But its claim to fame is just how incredibly sharp it is. Yeah, I don't know. This is probably sharper than that Vega. When I'm looking at the Vega, I think the Vega's sharper. When I'm looking at this, I think this thing's sharper. So it's hard to say. But yeah, I'll do some comparison footage. So the point of running this comparison footage I got in the background here is to show that these high-end consumer sets that are very sharp are comparable to a PVM. I want to say low-end PVM, but it's hard for me to like say those terms together in the same sentence, low end and PVM. This is a very middle of the road PVM. I've noticed that this PVM in particular, the 20M2 MDU, is less sharp than other PVMs I've seen. I mean, it's way sharper than some of those like 450 line 20 inchers that don't have component video, but it's not as sharp as say a PVM 2030, but just barely off of that. So it's a good PVM. It's just not one of the best. And these consumer grades look just as sharp to me. Now, a couple points to make here is that I tried my best to bring out the footage here. I'm not trying to make anything look better or worse. I'm not team consumer grade and anti-RGB or anything. In fact, I went and re-recorded this PVM footage. I might even include some of the bad recording I had. My original recording, I thought didn't do the PVM justice, so I went back and redid it and was happy with it. But this isn't like the definitive perfect recording and comparison here. I didn't use a probe. I didn't color calibrate all my TVs prior to make sure they were spot on, although they all have been calibrated. So none of them are like out of whack or anything. But I think it comes across that these are all very comparable. And then the D series is in there to show you what something that isn't comparable looks like. And the D series is an excellent consumer grade CRT, but it doesn't look like a pro monitor like the Toshiba and the Vega. Yeah, they look like pro monitors. You will notice that the scan lines are thicker on the consumer grades versus the 20-inch PVM. And that's because these consumer grades are 27 inches and 32 inches. And when you got a bigger TV, you're going to get bigger scan lines. But you'll also notice, zoomed in like this, a little bit of like a screen door pattern creeping in on the consumer grades because we're zoomed in so close and the TV is so large. You will see like a little bit of screen dooring if you look in the background where the phosphors are separated and it almost looks like there's a little bit of vertical scan lines. But yeah, guys, consumer grades are sharp too. Sony Trinitron XBR48 curved glass Sony with component inputs. This is my tweener TV, meaning it's in between my Sharpies and my shadow mask tubes. It's not quite sharp enough to be in that same group with the Sharpies, but it's definitely too sharp to be in the group with the other shadow mask tubes. So it's kind of a freak in that. It's just gorgeous. Looking at the build quality, I mean, this is like Sony at its pinnacle. And it's interesting, this came out in '98. And it really reminds me of my PVM 2030, which came out around the same time. And both of those just have beautiful build quality and just a sense of perfection about them. It's when Sony was probably at the top of their game. Yeah, and pulling this out, I don't use this TV anymore. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just getting nostalgic just looking at it and missing it. I miss looking at this in my room. It's probably my favorite. I don't know, it's hard to say. This and the Mitsubishi. The Mitsubishi has an excellent build quality too. Like I said, it is a curved glass. Let's see. I guess it's not curved in that plane. It's curved. It's hard to show. It has a very gentle curve to it, especially considering it's 35 inches. Let's look at some scan lines. All right, XBR48 here. So I mentioned earlier that this and the Mitsubishi might be my favorite TVs. That's as far as build quality. When it comes to sharpness and actually playing games, neither of those are my favorites. And what is it? Okay, so this TV looks excellent for 240p gaming. It's not quite as sharp as the Sharpies I talk about, but it's pretty close, and it just has like a special look to it, like a glow to it that I just love. It looks really good with 240p. With 480i though, when I'm watching movies, it looks kind of dim and it's not as sharp, and it's always leaves me wanting more. And I watch a lot of movies, so that's why I don't use it. I feel like I need to sell this TV because I really want to get it into someone's hands. I just feel like this is somebody's favorite TV out there. Just the curve on it, the build quality. If they're only playing 240p games, they're gonna love this. It has a very special pro monitor type look on it. It has a jungle chip in it that handles the video, which is different than the Vegas and Sony's that came after it. And it has a different look. It's a bit softer. I've heard people call it dimmer. It's hard for me to say if it's dimmer because it has the jungle chip or if it's dimmer because it's old. It's a 1998, and the guy I bought this from, this was his family TV. You know, like this was in their living room with a bunch of kids. Like they've been watching this for years. So it's got a lot of hours on it. And the dimness is something like watching it now, it doesn't look dim at all. It looks excellent. But in my room, I have multiple CRTs hooked up, and so I can't help but compare them, and I'll notice that this one's a little dim. These are my shadow mask tubes. On the left, we got a Panasonic CT27D11E, and in the middle, we have a JVC AV36D303, a D series. And on the right is a Mitsubishi CS4809. Yeah, I compare all these together because they all have a very similar look. They all look very shadow masky. The one on the far right is a 40-inch. This is a 37, or excuse me, 36, and that's a 27-inch. And the two on the right, the D series and the Mitsubishi, are just gorgeous. The build quality, and the one on the left is very boring. Let's just get in here. We can kind of walk up and check them out. Here's the Panasonic. And out of the three, this one's gonna be my favorite as far as video quality. Probably followed by this D series here, which really isn't any sharper, I don't think, than its Mitsubishi. Yeah, I don't know if I like the Mitsubishi or the D series more. It's hard to say. Like the sheer girth of this thing's 40 inches. It's friggin' huge. It's so impressive. And everything else about this is just, it just speaks of perfection. Just, it has perfect geometry. It has perfect convergence, and the white balance is excellent. It's just, it's not very sharp though. Yeah, some people like that. I'm not one of them. But yeah, let's just look at each set in particular and discuss its peculiar. Oh man, I can't speak. Let's talk about what sets them apart. It makes them special. Okay, so the Panasonic here, out of all the shadow mask tubes, barring the Toshiba, of course, it doesn't look like a shadow mask. This one's my favorite. It looks really sharp. And I've heard people talk about Panasonic tubes. Like you can get Panasonic tubes in the D series, and people want those D series to have the Panasonic tubes in them. And after getting this, man, I'm feeling it. I see why. Like if I could get this tube in this chassis, I'd be one happy mofo. Yeah, I mean, everything on this is excellent. The geometry is good, excellent-ish. The white balance is excellent. The black levels are excellent. And it's sharp for a shadow mask tube. It's quite sharp. What I don't like is just the chassis on it. I mean, I know it's cosmetic, but it's just the most boring looking CRT I've ever seen here. It's just like stock CRT image, and just like, it's like the CRT you see on the curb and you just pass right by. It's very unassuming. And when you look at its features, its menu and stuff like that, you can tell that it's not a high-end set. They didn't put a lot of money into it. It doesn't have a lot of extra features. Moving on to the D series here, and this one's the polar opposite. I wouldn't say polar opposite, but as far as build quality, it is. Like, this is some of my favorite design. I don't know what it is about the D series. I just love how it looks. I love the D series label. Something about how these speakers are, the angle of it, the foot on it, just everything. It's not flat on the top, but the damn thing is so big that you can still set stuff on it, and this minor curve isn't going to make it fall. While we're here, the bubble on this D series is pretty ridiculous. It's got a very pronounced bubble on it compared to the other sets. Yeah, I mean, the geometry on it is good. The white balance is actually, it's a bit off. I could try to correct it, but I don't bother with this set. It's one I fire up I was firing it up like once a year and playing some games on it, because the D series just has a certain charm to it. I believe this one has a Thompson tube in it. You could go back to my other, I have a video just on all my D series, and I'll go into more detail in that video. Moving on, we have the Behemoth, the 40-inch Mitsubishi over here. And just everything about this just speaks of quality. Like, down to the cord on it. Let's see if I can show the cord. I can't really. Well, the cord on it is fancy. Everything about it is fancy. Like, it has this like this faux marble on the top here. Just all the lines on it, like it has extra inputs on the back, like straight up says Diamond Series on it. It's got this door. Let me get some more light in here. Turn the ISO all the way up. This door pops open. And this is actually not the one that came with it. The one that came with it like got stuck in the popped out position. So I harvested some organs from another Mitsubishi and put this one in it. But the one that came with it had S-Video on here. You can adjust the tilt here. This is the tilt correct. Like, everything about this TV, man, it just speaks of quality when you go into the menu and everything. But the tube on it is it's just very average. You know, it's not as sharp as I don't think it's as sharp as the D series. It's hard to say. But the geometry on it is like perfect, which is freaking crazy. That it has perfect geometry and convergence for a massive tube like this. I think I'm going to do another video on this, because the very first video I did, first video I've ever shot in my life of anything, was on this TV, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I'll probably go back and do that. Check out some Panasonic scan lines. Check out some D series scan lines. And the Behemoth.